Welcome to New Hampshire's Business. I'm Fred Kocher. The Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire became the second largest supplier of electricity in New Hampshire over the last few years, with the promise of lower rates to communities that joined the coalition. That happened at first, but then it didn't. Its executive director is here to talk about what happened and what they're doing about it. But first, this map of New Hampshire shows how many communities across the state adopted the Community Power Coalition to supply its power. And you can see the community power, the blue marks are operating programs. Those are communities with operating programs. The orange marks ready to operate, and the green marks are communities planning to operate. Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire supports 50 community power programs and approximately 186,000 customers statewide. That's down from a reported 200,000 customers a couple years ago. With me in the studio is the executive director of the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire, Hendry Herndon, who was part of the group that organized the coalition in 2019. Nice to have you.
Thanks very much, Fred.
Henry, remind us how the coalition works with the utilities to supply power to the communities.
Yeah, so New Hampshire has seen a major evolution in its energy market over the past couple of years with, the 50 programs that we serve and another couple of dozen across the state. So there's maybe more than 75 programs that have taken advantage of local control.
And how does that work?
To buy their energy supply collectively.
Right.
This has driven more customer choice, more competition. Some of these cities and towns are really pushing the ability to develop local energy projects in the state as well. So it's really a big change for the market.
Yeah. Here the electric supply rates, and I say supply rates in particular, across the state, because there are many charges besides supply, but supply is what we're going to show here, is reported by the Public Utilities Commission, the New Hampshire Electric Co-op, and the Community Coalition. Eversource, and you can see the numbers. Eversource, New Hampshire Electric Co-op, these are cents per kilowatt hour supply, that is. Unitil, Liberty, and the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire at 14,667 kilowatt hours. Henry, your Community Power Coalition has the highest supply rate in the state, but you had the lowest a few years ago. What happened?
Yeah, so when we talk to our member cities and towns, other competitive suppliers, the policymakers in Concord, the biggest issue folks are talking about with regards to energy is that for the past 2 years or so, utility supply rates have resulted in about $40 million or more than $40 million in under collections. This is from the difference between the rate and the actual cost of power being purchased by those utilities. So that's still unfolding in Concord as we speak.
Yep. Okay, and that's what happened to you.
Well, yeah, there's this big question that policymakers are dealing with in terms of if we don't have an apples-to-apples comparison in the market, how do we address this? And with utilities, the regulators have changed up how they buy power. They're purchasing in the spot market, and it's resulted in these significant undercollections, and it's not necessarily an apples-to-apples comparison.
Now, several of your communities have left the coalition, and in particular, Bow and Hudson, and I'm aware that Portsmouth was considering it, but have they left, and what are you doing to get them back?
So this is exactly the challenge, is customers need an accurate, free and fair competitive market to make their decisions. They need to understand that the rates that they're being charged actually reflect their costs. When we set rates, or when any other competitive entity sets its rates, we know that that is going to be a transparent reflection of the cost of power. When I go to Dunkin' Donuts this morning to buy my coffee, I know that when I go in tomorrow, I'm not going to get charged double because that coffee that was sold to me was sold under the cost. And Dunkin' Donuts certainly can't charge the community cold brew at the Concord Farmers Market for losses on their coffee sales. So it's good that the legislature understands this, and they've put forward a bill to require that these large undercollections from utility rates not reflecting the cost of their energy supply are not going to be charged to cities and towns, not going to be charged to other customers in the competitive market.
You mentioned spot market, and there's a changing energy landscape in New Hampshire, which is spot market. The state's regulated utilities can now use the spot market power or power purchased in the shorter term instead of long-term contracts. It allows for lower rates to be offered. I'm thinking this should have lowered the rates which you had to charge your communities, but it didn't?
Well, what it did is it created a difference between the utilities costs and the rate that they charge, which has resulted in these tens of millions of dollars that have yet to be recouped. So what we really need for lower electric rates in the state is fair market competition, customers to be able to choose accurately between their different options. And really, over the longer term, if cities and towns are able to develop local energy projects, that will be in the interest of grant
Hendry
savers.
Herndon, who is Executive Director of the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred.
And if you missed part of this briefing on their coalition and power, electric power that goes to a lot of your homes, you can go to WMUR.com, where it will be posted all this week.